Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Iwami. I think one of the most underrated brawling battleships in the game. When I think of brawling battleships, typically it's not the Japanese line that I'm thinking of. They're often quite weak at closer ranges, armor-wise, and for some reason their dispersion feels pretty bad at those closer ranges too. Maybe that's down to just the difference in vertical dispersion. It's a little worse on those Japanese battleships. However, with Iwami, we get something rather special here. 100mm turrets off of Harugumo make up most of our secondaries, which means they pen 30mm of armor base, and we take IFHE, letting them all pen 32mm. That's what most of battleship armor is at higher tier, at least the extremities, so it makes these very, very powerful. And they have built-in accuracy like Schlieffen and Ohio, so the hitting DPM is very strong. We get torpedoes for close range action, but oh wait, is that 20 kilometers of range on the Torps? Yeah, you get to send out some meme 20 kilometer Torps. You're not going to hit them that often, but every once in a while it's pretty fun to get that in, and people just won't be expecting it. Crucially though, with this ship, we have some of the best firing angles in the entire game on the main guns. You can stay so well angled and shoot everything. 25 degrees forward, 27 degrees backwards. And that's really going to unlock a lot of this brawling playstyle for us. We don't have the greatest armor in the world. 32mm bow, stern, and upper belt can be a little bit vulnerable at these closer ranges, but a 50mm deck armor and a rather small superstructure, all things considered. Maybe not quite as small as something like Izumo, but it's small enough that we're not taking those full pens like we were talking about with Pommern recently. This ship's secondaries don't have the most range, though, is going to be the thing here. 10.5 kilometers is maximum on the range, and running a hybrid build only gets you like 9.2, something like that, which can be a very viable build as well. The reason, though, that this ship is extremely powerful at these closer ranges is this secondary DPM. The hitting DPM is kind of ridiculous, okay? 49,000 hitting DPM at 10 kilometers. Puts it only behind ships like Navarin, Patrie, Schlieffen, Sibir, Ushakov even has a little bit more. But we have more hitting DPM on these secondaries than Ohio, than Libertad, than Prince Ruprecht, things like this. It's a lot of damage this thing can output. It's very, very surprising. And unlike a lot of these secondary brawler battleships, the main guns are still extremely powerful. In fact, a lot of ways they're better than Izumo main guns, which is the Tech Tree Tier 9 Japanese battleship. This has 2.1 Sigma, where Izumo only gets 2.0 Sigma. Same dispersion profile, the Japanese battleship dispersion profile. Means we can just get some massive salvos with this thing. A little faster reload here too on these main guns versus Izumo, getting us down to that 28-second base reload. But we only get 8 guns instead of 9. Pretty small difference there. The AP shells are a little bit slower too, a little less pen because of that, and a little lower alpha damage than Izumo. So it's not quite just Izumo guns, but adding on almost Schlieffen level secondaries. But it's close, okay? It's kind of close. This is a really, really fun tier 9 that you can get for coal. I'm playing the B variant right now. Some Black Friday ships are available, but Iwami, available for coal. Probably should get it for coal, right? Save up with that just by playing the game, collecting those daily crates, and you should get towards Iwami rather quickly. Doesn't mean that it's going to hit every single salvo perfectly. The guns can be a little bit inconsistent from time to time, but overall, I've been finding it very strong. The healing and the overall survivability I found to be a little bit on the weaker side these days. Perhaps it's because we're fighting things like Los Andes so often. That ship is very difficult to take down in comparison. But Iwami doesn't have any special gimmick on its healing, and neither does it have any special damage control, anything like that, to get it back sooner. So very standard there. So you're going to be taking a lot of fire damage overall, and then your heals, you're not going to get back to them nearly as quickly. So you got to time your pushes appropriately. This one, we spent most of the time pushing, but I wanted to include this where we're pushing enemy spawn, which we usually shouldn't be doing. But we've done it in such a way where we're moving up between islands. I use islands a lot as checkpoints when it comes to playing any sort of pushing ship. It's not just battleships. Cruisers, it applies very well to. Staying safe behind islands and then timing your push towards the next island. Not trying to push open water because you get caught in crossfires like this. Bridgeport still has some of his reload booster available. So he's basically got Des Moines DPM here for a little bit, and that's why we're dying so quickly to him. Try an angle there, and Carcello gets a good hit in our broadside. But at least we do have the heal up, so we barely managed to survive. And we got to 2 million potential damage just while our heal was active. Yes, I was running the 3-point skill to get an extra heal. And I was so hoping when I was playing this game that that heal would tick out. I would use my heal up completely, and then I would get 2 million potential damage. Because when that happens, you get the charge back immediately. I wouldn't have to wait our entire cooldown here to get to my next heal. It's a really funny mechanic that I don't get to show off very often. And it was close enough that I did want to mention it here because it's pretty fun. I also waited on using my front guns here. The reason being I wanted to wait for Carcello to get his front turrets closer to getting in firing position. What a lot of people tend to do is when their guns are turning from the other side of their ship over to where they can fire them, and we actually trade there. Fortunately, we managed to get the trade, which is really good. But when those guns are turning, they want to speed it up just a little bit. So they're willing to turn a little bit more broadside to fire their guns sooner. And that's what I waited for to try and get a better salvo. I'm guilty of this as well, you'll notice throughout my games. Oftentimes when that turret's almost in firing range, I don't wait until it's fully turned. I turn my ship a little bit. Massive damage in on Bismarck. Again, main guns that are actually somewhat accurate is so nice. Played a lot of Pommern recently for a video, and yeah, you got more shells there, but the guns here are quite a bit more consistent, I would say. 8 guns only, but the accuracy is so much better. And of course, having 4 10s gets you a little bit better overmatch too. We had like 90k secondary alpha damage in that last game, by the way. Not a lot of fires, of course, running IFHE. You're not going to get too many of them. But 90k raw damage out of secondaries is kind of wild. And that's because Iwami secondaries are just that good. Now we're getting YOLO rushed. You noticed I torped the gap there for that Bismarck. Very good to do in an Iwami. But also is, if you're getting YOLO'd, you got secondaries here. You notice my main guns aren't really going to be turned in time, or at least not loaded in time. It's okay. We can trade this out with Dev Strike with Torps, man. It's so handy to have that extra ability with torpedoes. However, no Hydro, right? That was something I was really enjoying with while playing Pommern recently. And one of the reasons that ship is pretty nice, where you get both the Tirpitz torpedoes as well as the Bismarck Hydro there. This one, no Hydro, so it makes it a little harder to push in, certainly. Torpedoes are going to do a ton of damage to you in an Iwami, since you don't have the best torp protection. 37%, like it's 37% is good, but some of the better brawlers are up towards 40 or even 50%. Things like Massachusetts gets pretty close there. So you take quite a lot of damage, it feels like, from these torpedoes. So then maybe you decide to play it as a hybrid build, and for random battles, this feels right. Okay, this feels like the right build. This allows you to have 2.1 Sigma with full dispersion build and reload build, giving you a really fast reload on what should be accurate guns. What happened there? Look at that dispersion, it looked unlocked. Okay, aim bugs aside, it's relatively accurate, okay? And this build still gets us 9.2 kilometers of range on those secondaries. There we go. Look at that dispersion. With this, hopefully, being your dispersion most of the time. And we're going to slow push this flank. And this is where something like Iwami stands out as a really fun ship to play. And more versatile than something like a Pommern. Yes, you can brawl. Yes, you can have a ton of fun at close range when the opportunity presents itself. But when it doesn't, you still have really respectable main guns, range, and shell velocity, and that allows you to actually just play the mid-range sniper role for a battleship if that's what the matchmaker gives you. It's not always going to give you the brawling games, right? We know this. I got very lucky in that Pommern video recently where I got all the brawling games at once. With Iwami, when I was recording, it took me a little bit of time to get some of these closer range engagements, and in that time, I had a lot of great experiences here with the hybrid build, where we are going to slowly push some of these flanks. Cassard gets caught a little bit too close to us, and suddenly that high DPM of secondaries opens up on him. It's so useful for dealing with and deterring a lot of these YOLO pushes, DDs that get a little too close, or ones that just try and farm you down, right? There's a lot of farming DDs these days, so it provides you a little bit of support, or at least deterrent towards the enemies there. No Hydro means we have to be constantly considering when someone could be torping us, okay? Cassard has torps on both sides of his ship. We saw one launch already, and for some reason, he turned along the border back towards us, so he could not get away. What would be the only reason he could possibly have for doing that? Yeah, he's torping, okay? It's not always going to be quite that obvious, but you should be trying to dodge things before the torps come towards you. Things like Hydro are great, but even with Hydro battleships, you should try to predict when the torps are on their way, as battleships are large and quite clumsy. At least if you're playing some of these older versions. Okay, we're not going to mention some of the newer concepts Wargaming's brought up, but still, you should be trying to predict where torps are coming, and because of that, we do manage to avoid a lot of those torpedoes. A lot slower damage towards the end here, but it was just a lot of cleanup, and we ended up getting closer to 200k in this one, with only 29 secondary hits. We'll take our nice E and move right along, but I wanted to include that, because you can have just really good mid-range battleship play with this thing. And if you're looking for a ship that permits you to brawl and have secondaries and have that fun, but you don't want to fully commit to it so that you're suffering in the vast majority of games where you can't get to these closer ranges, where you can't flank nearly as much. This is a pretty interesting concept to me, and that's why I wanted to take a look at Iwami today. Again, here in this one, running the hybrid build, so we only have 9.2 kilometers of secondary range, but we're still going to get some monstrous damage on this Jean Bart because he has 32 millimeters of armor everywhere. And he's got some pretty scary main guns, as we know, especially with that reload booster. French shells have really good pen as well, so we can just angle in. This is, I mean, it's night and day coming from Pommern to Iwami. I played these ships relatively recently. I'm not sure exactly when this video is coming out. It might be a little bit later than the Pommern video, but it's absolutely ridiculous feeling the difference in firing angles, I gotta say. 25 degrees forward, like 30 degrees. I am happy. I'm so happy to have a battleship or any ship with 30-degree firing angles, let alone 25 forward, 27 backwards. It's really, really nice. And again, looks like we're gonna get another torp hit here and pretty nice damage out of it. It's the extra range here. A lot of these battleships that have torpedoes, a little bit less these days, but more so it was 6 kilometers was the range for battleship torpedoes on the German battleships, of course. Here, though, having that 20 kilometers of range is very, very nice. We do take some hits back, certainly, but we have a ton of damage there, especially from those secondaries. Full pending 32 is really, really nice. We have an encounter at very, very close range, and, well, we're going to get some overmatched citadels because that is an unfortunate mechanic in this game. Without it, well, there's nothing we could really do. With it, it's very frustrating for cruisers, of course. In this case here, we do get fortunate enough to get one, but he's turning so broadside to us. Why would he turn that broadside to us? Yeah, he's probably torping us, yeah? It may seem obvious, but still, it's worth considering. We're also trying not to get greedy for our rear turrets. This is something I've talked about when playing torpedo boats, like Benham on that ship request recently. Had one of my best games ever in a torp boat there. And what I was constantly looking for is where are the battleship turrets turning? Where are the rear turrets turning? You notice how my rear turrets are turning around to face on the left side of my ship? That kind of tells this encounter that I'm looking to go towards the right here. So maybe, if we're going to bait that, we try to use that as a tell to say, encounter, you should torp in front of us. I'm not going to slow down and turn in. And then I do that. It's a bit of a mind games here, a bit of cat and mouse, whether or not it's going to work, of course. And considering the speed of Iwami is not amazing at changing direction, you won't know until you get hit with torpedoes, or they miss in this case, which is very, very nice. But these are the things I'm trying to think about in these brawling situations. Onwards to, I think, our last game here, getting into another brawling situation with another Jean Bart. A lot of those out these days. And a submarine, uh-oh. It's probably about time that we talk about some other weaknesses that Iwami has in regards to the other two classes in this game. Carriers and subs, it's going to be tough for Iwami to deal with. Fortunately here, this I-56 got too close. Within 3 kilometers, he's not going to have very much damage on his torpedoes. Luckily for me, otherwise I would have been dev struck here for sure. And against carriers, your AA is quite poor, unfortunately. I was hoping, given with this ship having secondary power, maybe then you get some decent AA. Something like Shikishima actually has surprisingly good AA. It also has some of those Harugumo turrets, not with the improved accuracy, which is why you shouldn't be running Shikishima secondary build. Although, wouldn't that be interesting with Shikishima having improved accuracy like these secondaries do? I don't know. Could be cool, but I doubt they would change Shikishima like that. It already has some pretty massive advantages, that ship. Here's another great example of using island cover, but more importantly, Look at our firing angles here. We're leading this Jean Bart and still staying under 30 degrees of angle towards him. That's crazy. Normally, when you have to lead ahead of a ship and expose more broadside yet, you're very vulnerable to taking citadel damage, that kind of thing, which this ship does have an above water citadel. But not so with Iwami. It's so insane, these firing angles. It allows us to play so much safer and more aggressive while taking less damage. It's really, really convenient. Secondaries again showing off their power against this La Pampa. Getting up close like this, using island cover as checkpoints, getting us close enough to help out on these DD fights is how you're going to help your team win flanks. Yeah, it's safer to play a little further back, but the amount of flanks that we're just going to win solely off of the pressure of a battleship that takes forever to kill, let's be honest, compared to cruisers and destroyers. So people are going to focus on you. That's shots not going into your teammates. And hopefully you can provide maybe a salvo or two of damage into that destroyer. And if you have secondaries, well, then those will also give a little bit of supplemental damage, which should be enough to win a lot of those gunfights. Even gunfights between, like, maybe not Shima and like Marceau, for example, but even in such an extreme example as that, an extra salvo or two from a teammate is enough to turn that engagement, whereas Shima can win. Team support is just that important, and that's what I like about these brawler battleships. You get them up close and personal, you have so much battle impact, and I have a lot of fun doing that. We're also seeing the power of 32 mil pen again here against this Ohio and his bow. Look at the secondaries here. They try to aim for midsection belt armor, so that's what they're hitting now. But when he was bow in, we were getting a lot of great damage there into his bow section. So you don't get great damage into broadsides. That's where sometimes you'll notice me not target my secondaries. I think I did that against the Bismarck, who pushed in a little earlier. Didn't target my secondaries. I did not want the improved accuracy. So the worse accuracy would lead to some shells going up into the superstructure. And again, we come out of that last battle with another E. I was having a pretty good time with Iwami. It's not going to be perfect in every scenario, and certainly the guns can troll you from time to time. But combining a ship with solid, powerful secondaries and main guns that can perform in mid-range allows you to feel quite powerful and able to play the game in the vast majority of Matchmaker, which is what I think sets Iwami apart and makes it a bit underrated as a brawler, because it can just play the mid-range battleship role so well too. But don't be afraid of pushing this thing in. It is quite strong in that scenario too. 50 millimeters of deck armor here is very good, but the extremity is a little worse, and this upper belt, this is a big weakness at close range. Some overmatch, sure, but HE certainly, and if you show enough broadside, maybe there's multiple ships, smaller caliber AP munches through this. We saw that with the Bridgeport, actually. Was doing great damage with his armor piercing there. I should also show you the Citadel before we move on. It's like this weird turtleback situation here, but it's so sloped. Like, this is not steep enough of an angle, or shallow enough of an angle, whatever, to actually bounce the shells upwards at closer ranges, which is what we need out of turtleback. So it's an exposed above water Citadel. It's a bit of spaced armor though for you, so that can help. I wasn't getting Citadel too much, although I don't think that was down to the armor. I think that was more down to the firing angles allowing me to stay so ridiculously well angled. Here's the build that I was running towards the end. I was experimenting, I was messing around with it, seeing what could work. I was trying to do some full send pushes towards the end as well, so that resulted in me not needing as good a concealment, because I was just pushing, so I'm going to be spotted anyways. Playing a more of a hybrid build, I would just give up, say, preventive maintenance and improved repair party readiness, and just grab yourself concealment. 4 heals is more than enough for the vast majority of battles. And this one, you shouldn't be playing as that full send battleship because you just don't need to. It's just that good at mid-range that you can chill mid-range when the games are a little bit too dangerous for you to push, and then push towards the end, and you still should have a ton of HP. So having the 5th heal isn't always required. Full secondary build can work on the upgrades, but so too can the hybrid build, where we go aiming systems mod here, and then of course we'll go main battery mod here. This gives you very potent main guns. It gives you a 24-second reload, 24.6-second reload, which is very quick, as well as going to have solid secondaries too. 9.2 is fine enough. You're not going to get them active all that often when it's 9.2. You got to get pretty close these days for high tier games. At least 9.2 feels very close in high tier games these days. And the nice thing is you can keep the same commander and then just swap between these different modules depending on how you want to play. It's nice to have that flexibility. Modules are much cheaper to swap because it's credits, whereas swapping commanders, well, that costs you doubloons if you want to change your builds, for example. But that's going to do it for today's video on Iwami. Very underrated brawler. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.